Good morning. Welcome back to the Mayor's Table. I'm Mayor Tommy Roberts, and joining me once again this morning is City Manager Rob Mays.
Good to be here.
Rob, we've been doing this for a good 4 months, almost 5 months, and again, we're getting some good feedback, and you and I are both happy with the results and feel that we're actually educating our community members who are watching the Mayor's Table, and we've had some positive feedback. So our plan is to continue.
Yeah, it's an opportunity sometimes to set the record straight or to clarify something and help people really understand what's going on.
And that's exactly what we're going to do this morning.
Exactly, that's why I said that.
So we have recently had some negative news for Farmington. USA Today published an article probably about 3 weeks ago that identified the city of Farmington as the fastest shrinking city in the United States in population. And of course, we've realized that we have been struggling in the energy sector with losses of jobs, both in the coal sector, the oil and natural gas production sector, and that's resulted in a fairly significant impact on us that we realize. And we realize that there have been people who have left the workforce because of a lack of work, and they have moved themselves and their families out of Farmington. But there are a couple of things that we need to highlight for our viewers that maybe adds a different perspective to that very negative view of Farmington. I don't find in the community, as I go out and talk to people, that in the city of Farmington that there's that dire concern about the long-term health of our community. Most people realize that our economy has historically been based on the oil and gas and natural resources sector, and that is a cyclical industry by its very nature. We've, over our history, had periods of booms and busts. And for each boom that we've had some period of time in which we've had a bust, then followed by another boom. And I believe that we're in that kind of cycle.
Yeah.
But let's specifically address the USA Today article.
Yeah.
And I'd like for you to focus initially on the so-called Metropolitan Statistical area and how that factored into this story.
Yeah, this was the most recent of this happening, but this is not necessarily a new thing. This one just hit really hard because of the economic challenges that we're in. But I remember one on Farmington's the trailer park capital of the world, one on domestic violence statistics, poverty issues, education issues, literacy issues, that these articles occasionally show up saying that we're the worst of the worst or near the bottom. What people have to understand that Farmington, and those articles come out nearly every time, they're not talking about the city of Farmington proper. They're talking about the Farmington MSA, a federal designation as a metropolitan statistical area. Every regional population dense area of 50,000 or more is designated by the federal government as an MSA and then labeled by the largest population base within it. In our case, the Farmington MSA, Metropolitan Statistical Area, covers all of San Juan County. So it's all of the incorporated areas. You know, it's everything from Nageese to Newcomb, all the way up to the Four Corners, Aztec, Bloomfield, Kirtland, all of the unincorporated areas of San Juan County, and including sections of the Navajo Nation. So these stats are all that area thrown into a pot, averaged out, and then compared to the nation. So the fact is, in this recent article with USA Today, Farmington's not the fastest shrinking city even in San Juan County, let alone in the nation, and we're not even the fastest shrinking city in the state of New Mexico, let alone the nation, when looked at Farmington proper. But having said that, obviously there's nothing we recognize, as you've already said, that our area is hurting, and this is a down time. But things aren't as dire as an article like that made things appear.
And I want to be clear that we're not trying to disassociate ourselves from the rest of San Juan County, because we do recognize that our economy is a regional economy. Yeah. We know that we have a retail population of upwards of 300,000 people. And I think that's very important for our citizens to recognize. We're not trying to discount the fact that we're struggling on an economic basis right now. But we also know that we've got some other sectors of our economy, other than the extractive resources, that contribute mightily to the health of our economy and actually are beginning to form a very solid foundation for the overall health of our community. Let's talk about that regional retail population and what it is and where it comes from.
Yeah, and just before I just elaborate on my answer, it is a double-edged sword. Being the Farmington MSA, we're only one of 4 in the whole state. Albuquerque, Farmington, Las Cruces, and Santa Fe. We're only one of 4, and that also gives us, to speak right to your point, by being an MSA as national chains and those that are developers that are looking for places to invest their money, you've got to be an MSA almost to be on the map for them to be willing to look at you. And so that does contribute to our ability to capitalize on our regional. But the fact is, our regional market goes far beyond the MSA. Our MSA is essentially San Juan County. Federal government then also designates what's called the Farmington Trade Area, and that's 221,000 people. And that's essentially the hub of Farmington up through Durango and up into La Plata County. And then they even footnote it with there's an extended market area because of we're so isolated out here that frankly it extends out to 307,000 people, which is essentially the Four Corners region. And so that's our market, and we have to be mindful that we're not just the city of Farmington. We benefit and have the good and the bad that comes with being the commercial hub of that entire area. Sometimes it's bad things, but most of the time it's something good. So, well, you ask about those sectors. Well, the fact is oil and gas is down. There are other sectors that are keeping us up, and specifically to kind of put that in perspective. And you've often said that we're probably more diversified in our economy than people give us credit for. Back in 2010, when we had the Great Recession, for every dollar we lost in GRT from the oil and gas sector, we lost 50 cents in everything else averaged together. Fast forward to 2015, for every dollar today that we're still down in oil and gas, we're only down 7 cents in everything else. So we see clear evidence of a diversification. And the good news is that people often ask, how are all these new businesses still coming to Farmington with all the things that are going on that are bad? Well, that's the upside. These national chains and national developers, they still see Farmington as a great short and long-term risk, a place to invest their capital. They're choosing to invest it here versus other places.
I believe it's the Albuquerque economic developer who's developing the Dick's Sporting Goods site, and that'll have a Chick-fil-A location and a couple of other retail businesses when that's fully developed. He was quoted in the Daily Times here in the last couple of weeks of saying that there's been a 5-year pent-up demand for retail services in the Farmington area, and that's what's driving some of this development. Many people are amazed that we continue to have these restaurant businesses coming to Farmington, hotels coming to Farmington. Yeah. But I think it is explained by that so-called pent-up demand for those services generated by this 250 to 300,000 population that see Farmington as the hub for the services and products that they need.
Yeah, in fact, that very article, he went on to his next statement, his next quote was, Farmington needs to realize you're much broader. He spoke about the trade area, and he said, you are the commercial hub for about 8 other population centers and communities. This is the place people are coming. That's why they're building here. And you mentioned tourism a minute ago and hotels. I definitely want to point out that that's a real bright spot. That's actually an area that's up in terms of tax received.
We recently attended the annual meeting of the Farmington Convention and Visitors Bureau, and during that meeting it was reported that for the month of March of 2016, Farmington had the highest occupancy rate for its hotels and motels of any other community in the state of New Mexico. And this is not a new phenomenon. I can recall 2 or 3 years ago looking at those reports almost monthly, and Farmington was up in the 75% occupancy rate, which is the highest in the state of New Mexico at that time. So This is not just something that's sporadic. This is a trend that we've experienced. It indicates to us that the tourism industry is healthy in our community, and I believe that as we focus on economic development efforts, we need to continue to focus heavily on tourism and exploring the opportunities to expand our tourism industry. Healthcare has been strong. We see that in our gross receipts tax revenue numbers on a monthly, quarterly basis, and construction is healthy. And but nevertheless, we recognize that many people are struggling in our community, and with the loss of jobs in the oil field, we tend to see a trickle-down impact. There's obviously fewer disposable dollars to be spent in our community. That declines to some degree, but we have to recognize that the picture is not all a bleak picture, and we are optimistic here that we'll survive this downturn, this so-called bust in our economy, and we'll continue on. We'll be in another period of time, hopefully not too far in the future, where we can all be comfortable with the level of economic activity that we have. I do want to point out that economic development is a high priority for those of us in city government, and that we contribute heavily to the economic development effort in the region through Four Corners Economic Development Incorporated, and we will continue to do that. Rob, do you have anything else you'd like to add before we close out?
No, I just was going to emphasize that as well. The economic development arm of the city of Farmington is Four Corners Economic Development. Instead of having our own staff, we aren't sitting back and while we're observing this growth in the retail sector and the service sector and tourism, we're not sitting back and presuming upon that. We're very active through Four Corners Economic Development in targeting base economy growth, including supporting the oil and gas industry. So, yeah, I appreciate that emphasis, because I wouldn't want anybody to think that we're insensitive to the realities of how tough things are for a lot of people right now.
Rob, thank you. And I want to thank you all for viewing this segment of the Mayor's Table. We'll look forward to seeing you next Monday.